Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about a very large winter storm. It may be a blizzard. The confidence about that's still uncertain. But this thing's going to be large. The confidence is obviously growing. It's becoming more and more likely. There are many details that have become more clear. And if you want to know what this does after it hits the west, Montana, Idaho, and what its next moves are, consider watching the video. And consider checking out the channel and the other videos to see if you would like to subscribe, especially if you're a new viewer. If you're a returning viewer, consider liking the video, as that really helps out. That helps out a lot. So let's begin talking about this potential beast of a winter storm. So right now you can see not really much going on across the United States, right? I mean, we do have quite a bit of activity across the Northwest, and a little clipper that kind of tore away some of the energy from the storm that came on shore is now pushing into Manitoba, or Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But this looks pretty darn close, and this is actually still a few days away, right, even though the precipitation's, pretty close to the areas that could be impacted, and there's a reason for this. As we push this forward, you can see this is now Friday, 2 o'clock in the morning. This is now Friday, 6 o'clock in the morning. Instead of pushing to the west, this initial storm kind of slides to the south, and that's why a lot of it, let's say California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, these areas will still be seeing quite a bit of snow. Now, I mentioned that this will be mainly impacting Montana and Idaho and southern Canada with like the blizzard and the heaviest of the snow, and that's because that's where the snow will fall regardless of elevation. But here it will be confined to the mountains. And notice that as we push this into 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, this is now 7 o'clock, this is 2 o'clock in the morning Saturday. This looks pretty measly, but this definitely does have a powerful trick up its sleeves. And as you can see, this thing really begins to intensify. It shoots a very large area of snowfall across Alberta and into Saskatchewan. Also, snow continues to fly across these locations. Again, it's mainly limited to the upper elevations, but where it does fall, this model really fails to show the intensity. It's going to be falling pretty heavily at times. And notice that it really cranks this up by late Saturday, early Sunday. This is now 1 o'clock in the morning Sunday. Very heavy snow now occurring across much of the west, and obviously where it's not warm enough, which is going to be a problem because a lot of these locations are warm. It will fall as rain, but you can see the mountains in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada, and even Northern California will be seeing snow. And this is now 2 o'clock Sunday morning. Again, the timing will still probably be a bit shifted around, but it shouldn't, be a day or two off at this point. Maybe a few hours this or that way, but generally, it's not that far out of an event. It's less than 100 hours. It's less than 72 hours. At least the beginning phases. Notice this is where the storm kind of exits out onto the plains. We start seeing extremely heavy snowfall across Montana, Idaho, and more of the northern areas versus the southern areas. They're still seeing snow, just not as significant. And notice this is now Sunday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We still see, look at that impressive snowfall across northern Arizona, Utah, and into southwestern Nevada. And that is definitely going to pile up. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the snowfall rates by this model are a bit underrepresented, and it's really hard to show exact snowfall rates over such a rugged terrain. I mean, you can see the isobars across the eastern terrain is, very nice and not interrupted, but here the mountains kind of create their own little pockets of pressure. And notice that as the storm enters the plains, again, like I mentioned, it really does strengthen into a very large storm. 984 millibars of low pressure, has a very snowy side to it. The rain on this thing is not impressive at all, which really leads to this system not strengthening too awfully much after it exits out onto the plains. Notice that at 986 millibars, it has very heavy snow. Again, these winds right here are definitely capable of causing blizzard conditions, but it's ultimately up to the National Weather Service whether or not they will call a blizzard warning on this. Again, usually they do that already after, or maybe 24 to 36 hours before the event. And depending on the confidence, obviously, but it's usually not early called unless the confidence is massive, right? And which at this point is not that confident. Notice this thing again, like I mentioned, it's really strong and it's still impressive for being an almost snow system with no rain. There will be some rain and unfortunately more ice than rain, and ice is definitely the worst. So a lot of treacherous travel across southern Canada and the northern United States, and you can see that's really freezing rain. Not really the purple colors, Which, if you were to ask me, that is purple is better to see. Purple is better to see mainly because of that sleet, and sleet doesn't stick to power lines and pave the roadways with a thin layer of ice. Sleet are these little balls, basically, of melted snow crystals, not fully melted, and they've been, as they enter the last kind of 1,000 feet of the surface of the atmosphere, they refreeze into these little balls, and they kind of stick together and harden, right? But they don't really cause as slippery conditions as freezing rain. Notice though, this thing kind of falls apart. It really does still produce quite a bit of snow as it moves into extreme portions of northwestern Ontario and into Hudson Bay. And then this is where we start seeing some of that rain, the rainy side of the storm act up. But notice that this low pressure system is already pretty far to the north, and that then kind of splits away, though we still see a trailing cold front, but it's not enough to really intensify this into a ridiculous storm system. What it does do, though, and this is now Monday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at this point, this could definitely still veer. Because as we are closer to the storm right here across these locations, many of these places will be basically seeing snow at around what this model is showing. But as we push further, the confidence decreases, it diminishes. And that's basically what it is, diminishing confidence. And notice that as we push this cold front into portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, it's mainly rain, but with the help of a surge from the tropics because of a potential tropical storm or hurricane, we'll have to see what it does with that. We could be looking at an influence of moisture, and that gives enough of the storm, enough energy to kind of lift itself up, develop a cold front, a warm front, and a snowy side to this. You could see this impacts portions of Minnesota, Duluth, the Arrowhead. So a lot of these locations seeing very heavy snow potentially. And again, this isn't ridiculously far out. This is only 130 hours out, 32 hours. Isn't that often, or isn't that far away, and often models can already predict the storm pretty accurately that far out. And they have been consistent and showing this model, or this storm. And you can see that storm system definitely does strengthen as it pushes into just north of Lake Superior into Ontario and drags up even more moisture with it. And after this, the confidence is really low, and we'll have to see what it does. This model showing another potential snow system, more rain. We'll have to see. But in terms of the first snowstorm, how much snowfall is on its way? Well, let's take a look at the total accumulated snowfall and leave it to around hour 150 again. That's the second system. Again, very far out, and this will definitely still change. But this one right here, you can see where those amounts peak, definitely up to 2 feet across many areas. Foot plus across a huge area, and then over 6 inches plus across an even greater area. Obviously, that's over 2 feet. That's over a foot. And this is over 6 inches, that purple color. And notice the west overall, even portions of Nevada, California, even very southern locations just north of Los Angeles. Look at that, 15 inches of snow. And notice Colorado, the mountains, some locations seeing 30. So definitely quite a bit of snow on the way, and definitely good news for the drought, as they are very, very eager to see any form of precipitation. Now let's take a look at the precipitation that includes the rain and the snow. I'm just showing you the radar now. I saw precipitation and I got confused for a second. I just misclicked. In terms of the rain, you can see it's obviously quite a bit still falling across the Midwest, the East Coast, a bit across the South, depending on how this tropical storm develops. And most of this precip that falls here is going to be snow. However, again, that snow will eventually probably melt, especially since it doesn't look to stay much colder across these locations. Or, not much colder than average. So a lot of that will melt and obviously translate into a liquid, which is water, and that will help out the drought. And, even if it doesn't in the springtime, it will. Notice that definitely a lot of rain on their way, a lot of precipitation. Let's take a look at another model. Let's take a look at the GFS Global Forecasting System. Again, we have that little clipper across southern Canada dumping loads of snow right now. Quite a bit of snow even for such a small storm, but as we push this forward, you can see there we have that storm initially goes to the south, towards the southwest, and then takes a sharp turn towards the northeast, and that's where it really intensifies and strengthens. And the GFS does a very similar thing. Late Saturday, early Sunday, this has been consistent for a few days, and among most models, we start seeing rapid intensification of this low pressure, tons of rain, lots of snow. Mainly those snow again. The rain will be more limited than not, which is a bit unusual. And notice this thing does develop into a very large storm, very strong winds, blizzard conditions, some sleet, some freezing rain. Unfortunately, probably more freezing rain. And then you can see it pushes off, and it doesn't leave a lot of rain behind, but it does eventually trigger a cold front after it's already a bit past its prime. And you can see the GFS doesn't really develop a snowstorm out of this, if you will, like the European did, right? But again, that's still changeable. It does, if you will, but it's further to the north. And if this were to do it further to the south, that definitely would be a difference of quite a bit of impact. If there was snow, if this 973 millibar storm was across the Midwest, that would have been a much different story. And that's still a possibility, as the European agrees more with, disagrees with the GFS on this. Again, though, GFS keeps things active. Lots of storms, lots of precip flows, and notice more precip coming in at the very long range. So overall, what I want you to take away from this is we have a snowstorm this weekend, a pretty large one across the Northwest. The rain is going to be limited really across the Midwest. Around Tuesday, Wednesday, midweek next week, we start seeing a resurgence of moisture associated with that first storm, bringing up a bit of energy with it. And that could trigger a second snowstorm. Let's take a look at the total snowfall. Again, very high snowfall amounts with that first system. Some locations seeing well over a foot and a half to 2 feet of snow, especially across the higher elevations. Many of the mountain ranges seeing white and turning white right before, Thanksgiving. Well, not right before, but in the first half of November. And that is as far as this GFS goes. Let's take a look at the GFS parallel. Again, I am sorry I'm going through these a bit quickly, but I have to get as much models in as possible, as each model shows something differently. Though, again, they are in pretty good agreement with that first storm. Lots of snow, very heavy snow, and again, mountains seeing quite a bit. We do have that second storm with the GFS parallel agrees more with the European rather than its GFS family member. And then if you were to look at the Canadian model, you could see that it actually, again, shows a lot of snow from the Northwest and into Montana and into Idaho, Wyoming. So similar to all the other models, but it doesn't show that second system really fruition as the other models do. But again, that's still far out. That's our secondary concern. I want to show you the 7-day forecast, or let's take a look at the National Weather Service map. You can see there are already winter storm watches across much of Montana and into portions of southern Colorado, into the Sierra Nevada. If you were to look at, I think this is the Glasgow, Montana forecast office, there is quite a bit of snow, and again, talk about a potential blizzard. You can see reduced visibility and blowing and drifting snow, near whiteout conditions. It's basically a description of a blizzard, and I would be surprised if they don't call a blizzard warning on this in a few days. I clicked on, again, you saw just north of Glasgow, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but notice Sunday 4 to 8 inches, Sunday night 3 to 7 inches, and it's actually very interesting to see them seeing that much snow this weekend, a few days away, when right now they're in much of Montana's in the 60s, 70s, and just extremely record-breaking warm temperatures. And it quickly jumps that into very cold and snowy weather. This is now the forecast office of Grand Junction, Colorado. Again, if you saw on the weather models, these locations right here may be in for 30 inches of snow, depending on exactly where I clicked. But again, 6 to 10 inches, and then here they don't show the snow amounts because it's a bit too far out. But 1 to 2, 6 to 10. So lots of snow for sure. And that's not out of the question. This is the Sierra Nevada. Let's click and go to Yosemite. And let's go to Sequoia National Park, actually. Let's click on this and see. You can see there's Yosemite. But this is taking a bit while to load. So basically, the Sierra Nevada, obviously the higher in the elevations and more, I would say tops around a foot and a half. So nothing extreme, right? For the Sierra Nevada, they have seen snowstorms that have 5-6 feet in one event. This one's a bit of a smaller one, but again, it's only beginning of November. Okay, so this one's not loading. Let's just take a look at the higher resolution model, the NAM 12KM, and you can see again, it shows that very same, mimicking that very same situation. Let's look at that. Keep misclicking today. let's look at that radar range / frozen, and notice that right now we don't have much going on, but that quickly changes. The storm pushes, you can even see that spin right there to the south, then it turns sharply to the northeast. We see loads of snow breakout, very strong winds, and then again, this is as far as this model goes. By the way, even if you live across the Central Plains and you may be thinking you're not going to get impacted by this storm, that's not true, because you have a high pressure right here, which is a very, very strong high pressure. It's extremely large. And what high pressures do, they spin clockwise, kind of like your clock. Low pressures spin counterclockwise, not like your clock. And throughout much of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, Nebraska, all these states, there'll just be massive, very strong winds. And if you were to actually look at the National Weather Service, they have red flag warnings because of the strong wind. And because of the warm temperatures, the dryness, and the strong winds, which create almost perfect fire hazard weather. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.